Welcome to Boostin' Road Designs. Today we're looking at the Air and Space Novelties Hangar Museum. So put on your tinfoil hats and join us for an alien autopsy of this cool piece. So I got this piece as a gift, and it's really cool. I love the retro sci-fi aesthetic. I've always had kind of a alien UFO kind of thing going on, so I love the Roswell look of this piece. But right out of the box, my piece, one of the LED strips right at the top here of the control tower, supposed to be the kind of blinking red lights, didn't work at all. So completely dead. Couldn't figure out any obvious reason from the outside why it wasn't working. So we are going to crack into this and take a look and see if we can get that fixed up. So we'll have a 100% working piece here. So kind of looking around, it seemed like there was a panel in the back of the hangar. So I just took a heat gun and some spudge sticks to try to pry open that piece. It's plastic, but it's also kind of a weird, like a rubbery plastic or something. So be careful with the heat. It could warp it, but a little bit of patience and I was able to pry it open and reveal kind of the inner workings of this piece. It's got a lot going on. It has two boards. So here's like a little still shot. There's two boards kind of at right angles to each other, and the horizontal, the flat board, has a bunch of JST plugs. Those seem to be controlling most of the illumination, the LED strips, LEDs and strips and all of that. So I kind of just started sticking tools in there to try to pry off those JST connectors. I was trying to figure out which one connected back up to the lights. It really was kind of a tangle in there. It was difficult to determine, so I pulled off a bunch of the JSTs, teased apart the wiring, just so I can get a closer sort of assessment of which one connects up. I did have one mistake, so be careful. One of the, I guess, female JST connectors, the header kind of came off the board. So a little bit of hot glue will fix that up, but they're a little fragile, so go in carefully. And then I used a power supply with around 3 volts and these little micro like hook clips and just started applying power to each of the connectors. So the black one ends up controlling the black light, the yellow one controls the yellow light. The red one seemed to have no function, so that made me zero in on the red one as the probable culprit, or at least connected up to the, go figure, red LED strip on the control tower. So I wanted to get access to the top of that control tower to get in there. I could see that there were some screws holding on that roof, but they're covered by these detail pieces, and these were really tricky to remove. I tried a few things with heat and ended up having to use the super glue debonder again. So let that soak in, get some pliers, and then you're a dentist doing like a tooth extraction basically. As carefully you can pop those off after the debonder has had a chance to set or unset, I guess, and get bigger pliers as needed to get all those pieces off. But getting those off does expose some screws, really easy. A couple little clips are in there too. There's some little slots you can put a screwdriver in or something to get out, and that will give you access to the inside of the control tower where that LED strip is kind of feeding down. These little white parts of the roof can also be popped off. You can see where that LED strip gets kind of folded and passed through that little notch and through the notch in the glass too. But this is where it became very obvious that that LED strip is just bent and damaged from the factory. So they kind of fold it to get it through that little notch in the glass, and it's too much of a crimp. So it was no good. This could also apply to other pieces that have similar strips in similar situations. So then I just grabbed my power supply and some little pointers and was able to put around 3 volts to the power strip, like upstream, further up above that damage, and lo and behold, we get illumination of the LEDs. So that we're on the right track there. Taking a look, I cut off the damaged bent part and then left myself 2 little copper pads. So these are standard LED strips. They're tiny, but they're just positive and negative LED strips. So a little bit of flux on the pads and put some solder blobs, kind of standard way you would solder up connections for LED strip. And then just, yeah, put on my little micro goggles and just go at it. It took a little bit of patience, but I was able to get some little extended, twisted black and white wires on there. Those are just small, probably like 28 gauge copper wires. And then quick test to make sure that works. That's good. And then we can kind of start feeding the wires back down through the hole in the floor of the control tower and connect them back up to the original spot on the board. So just carefully feeding those in and then taking a little bit of extra time too with some hot glue to tack the new connector, the new connection to itself to stabilize the connection with some hot glue. And then I also used some hot glue just right on top of the exposed wiring to kind of insulate that there. So not too worried about it. And then hot glue as necessary to kind of get those wires tucked into the glass part and down into the control tower and just keep it all tidy. There is some moving, the alien moves in there, so you have to make sure you don't get the wire tangled up. But a few screws back on and tested it all out, and I thought that was pretty straightforward. A little hot glue to put the rear panel back on, and some more hot glue or super glue to get these detail elements back on the roof. So yeah, all done and working. It was kind of too bad it wasn't like this out of the box, but I'm glad I've got it fixed up now. So it's a cool piece. Very different from a lot of the other Lemax stuff. So a little bonus footage here. As I was building or repairing this, kind of looking at it and thinking to myself, it has a lot of cool elements like patina on the roof of the hangar here, like the Quonset hut and like rusty roof kind of thing. And there's some elements that look awesome. Like the detail is fantastic. But then there's like some areas where it looks like the plastic looks too new. It's too clean. It's too fresh. Like along the edge here, you go back and compare that to pieces like, I don't know, like Dead Man's Mine, right? So you look at Dead Man's Mine and like the perimeter, the detail, the sculpting and the shadowing is just so cool all the way around the piece. Or Dead Man's Cabin even, like a newer, smaller piece, but just the attention to detail to clean up, or not clean up, what's the opposite? Dirty up some of those areas. So I grabbed some like mini paints and some, in this case, not necessarily paints, but washes, which are like more transparent kind of texturizers or detail paints. And I just had some fun just kind of adding some my own details, custom details to this piece. Maybe like a bloody like handprint on this like container, and then some bloody footprints even like coming out of this tent. Maybe something happened. And that's the whole theme of this piece, is that aliens kind of take control. A little bit of blood coming out of the hangar, and then I have other washes: brown, black, gray. And then just rubbing some of the washes onto the piece and then using a paper towel or something similar to blot off the excess allows the wash to kind of seep into the crevices and the cracks, and you can kind of start to go crazy with this. At first, I wasn't too happy with it. And then as I got more comfortable and things, I just started applying it to all sorts of things like this control box or whatever it is over here. And then when you blot off the excess, it looks great. It puts a nice, worn, used patina, which you would sort of expect of a tent or some sort of object out at Area 51 in the desert. So a lot of brown, just spread it all over and then sort of rub it off. It sort of seeps into the nooks and crannies, and it probably doesn't come through in the video, but in the final piece, it looks a lot better. It just looks more natural and kind of how I probably would have expected the piece to be from the get-go. Just sort of better matching. Like and again, they did it some places, but other places it's just weird. So, but this is totally optional. This is something that I had fun doing, and I think just made the piece a little more interesting. And I might go do this on some other stuff too. I've got a few other pieces where I kind of thought it just doesn't look like that classic spooky town, rustic, used, creepy vibe. You know, you want to add a few details, just go for it. It's your stuff, it's your piece. So, so that was fun. And now with the details and the LEDs functioning, this thing is good to go. It looks awesome at night or in lower light with all the different illuminated elements going on. It's got some cool animations of like the speaking parts with the different voices and characters that are timed with the different LEDs in there, the black light and the yellow light here around the control tower. Is it worth it? On the Boost and Road Designs worth it meter, yeah, because it was fairly straightforward and easy. It didn't require extra parts. I was just fixing a minor defect, so definitely worth it. Not too much of a challenge here. So thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. If you want to see more of our videos, please subscribe so I know people are out there. But I've got a lot more videos for repair in the works, and we'll see you soon. Bye.